Hi. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I hope you're excited. I'm excited. Thank you for being here. Oh, I hope you can hear me. Will you let me know if you can hear me? Today is Christmas Eve, the day before Christmas. Dun, dun, dun. We're going to learn about Christmas today and how they celebrate it all around the world. We're going to do a story, and then I have a craft for you to do if you want to. You don't have to do it right now. You can just kind of learn about it and then do it whenever you're able to, if you're able to, and if you want to. And then you can send me a picture. So Christmas is a little bit different, actually, all around the world. Not everyone celebrates it the same. Different cultures do different things, and not even really everybody celebrates Christmas, actually. Some people celebrate Hanukkah, some people celebrate Kwanzaa, some people don't celebrate holidays at all. And it's important that we know that, and that we're respectful to everyone no matter what, because we're all different and it's all okay. It's all good. It's just different. There's no right or wrong. And that's why I kind of wanted to do this camp, was to show you all the different holidays and how they celebrate around the world. And that way, when you meet someone who maybe says they don't celebrate Christmas, or they celebrate Kwanzaa or Hanukkah, or they don't celebrate at all, then you can kind of understand the perspective a little bit and ask them questions if you want, but just know that we're all different. And that's what makes us all special and unique, that we get to share these different cultures, these different celebrations, different history, and we can all still get along and be friends and have fun together. So Christmas, from solstice to Santa. Many of these holidays are celebrated in winter or December. It's traditionally known as a season of darkness because the days get shorter, the sun goes away earlier, and in some countries and places of the world, we even have daylight savings time where we change the time. They actually don't do that everywhere. We change time so that we have more daylight. If not, it would get dark even earlier than it does now. So it might get dark around 7, 8. Some places it gets dark around 5, depending on where we are on the earth. And that's why it's known as a season of darkness, because it's usually dark much earlier in the day. Okay, so let's learn a little bit about it. All right, so in our family, it is hard to imagine what December would be like without a Christmas celebration. Until we began research for this book, we didn't know exactly why we always decorate a Christmas tree, light a fire in our fireplace, or leave a tray of milk and cookies outside on Christmas Eve. We sing carols that celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ, as well as those that feature characters like Frosty the Snowman, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and Santa. Some of the traditions we follow date back thousands of years, while others, like watching a festive movie, are more modern. Sorting out where our various traditions originated led us to discover that although we celebrate and understand Christmas in one way, there are many interpretations of what is the best and most appropriate way to honor the season. So here are some friends that did all of the research on Christmas trees, where these ideas come from, and why we do the things that we do. Season of darkness, season of light. Let's learn a little bit. A midwinter celebration held in December and January is common in many parts of the world. That's true even when in places like Australia or Florida, the winter months fall during the hottest part of the year. Why do so many people in the world embrace festivities that include such features as a baby in a manger, a jolly old man in red, a Grinchy tightwad, gifts, indoor trees, and a stuffed turkey on the dinner table, all in the name of Christmas? So let's take a look at where all those midwinter celebrations began. Early midwinter celebrations. In the depths of winter, when the days are short and the temperatures are chilly, it's not surprising that people look forward to the long, warm days of spring and summer. Thousands of years ago, when winter could be a time of fear, discomfort, and starvation, the promise of the sun's eventual return was certainly worth celebrating. In the Northern Hemisphere, the shortest day of the year is December 21 or 22. It's called winter solstice, after which each day gets a little longer until June 21st or 22nd, when we have summer solstice, the day each year with the most hours of daylight. In northmost towns, people must endure nearly 24 hours of darkness on the shortest, darkest day. If that's someplace you've been or someplace you live, I would love to hear about it, like Alaska. Midwinter celebrations were common throughout the Northern Hemisphere long before Christian leaders adopted December 25th as a special holy day. And yes, that's the origin of the word holiday. It comes from the word holy day. Many ancient peoples, like the Egyptians, worshiped the sun or had sun gods. Ancient structures, such as the Egyptian pyramids, were sometimes built to align with the sun's position on certain special days. The solstice was just one of the things that was celebrated, along with birthdays and key planting and harvest dates. The Norse word for a midwinter season of celebration is Jol. The English word Yule may come from these Nordic roots. In Old Norse poetry, the word was sometimes used to mean feast. Today, the word generally refers to the Christmas holiday season. It's a time to feast. Midwinter was a good time for feasting because livestock like lambs born in spring had often reached a good size for slaughter. Yes, they used to slaughter their animals and eat them. With food being hard to find at the time of year, it made sense to feast on meat rather than to keep feeding livestock when hay and grain were more expensive. Fermented ales and fruit wines were also ready to drink about then. And alcohol was often part of the partying that took place during solstice festivals. Yule logs and the Yule goat. The Yule log is a large piece of wood that people put in their fireplaces on Christmas. Sometimes Yule logs were burned until there was nothing left but ashes. The ashes were collected after the log was gone and were spread in gardens and fields. Adding ash to the soil provides some nutrients and can help certain plants grow better. So it was really about survival and making do with what they had when things grew best and were ready or not ready, because a lot of times there was hunger and times when it's too cold for things to grow. This is way back before they had stores and places where you would go buy things. You had to grow your own food or gather or hunt. Not the times that we're in now. Very different times. All right. The French made sure to keep some Yule log ashes for tucking under beds, as the ashes were thought to keep nasty storms away over the year ahead. In Scandinavia, there were many beliefs and traditions relating to the autumn harvest. One was the last sheaf of straw of the harvest had magical properties, and it was saved and kept for the Yule celebrations. One of the important gods of the harvest feast was Thor, who was believed to control weather and storms. One theory is that the straw bundles were shaped into a goat because Thor was said to have two goats. Although these straw goats were originally related to harvest festivals, today the Yule goat has become a symbol of Christmas. Farther south in ancient Rome, the pre-Christian Romans, so before Jesus was born, Romans were very good at partying, especially at midwinter. As far back as 217 before the Common Era, BCE, before Jesus was born, there are records of ancient Romans celebrating Saturnalia, a festival honoring Saturn, the god of seeds and prosperity. There was feasting, drinking, gambling, and general craziness for 7 days, from December 17th to 23rd. So 7 days of this, during which only people who prepared food were allowed to work. Schools and courts were closed, wars were even stopped, and disagreements between citizens were put on hold. So they would even stop fighting. Slaves and their masters briefly exchanged roles. Homes were decorated with greenery, and people exchanged gifts of candles and clay dolls. Fruit was meant to bring good luck and encourage fertility. Dolls were not toys to be played with, as they are today, but symbols of human sacrifice. In ancient Greece, the Greeks celebrated an important midwinter festival of their own. This one, the birth of Dionysus in December, said to be the divine son of Zeus. the king of the ancient Greek gods, and a human woman named Semele. Dionysus was the younger god to be welcomed to Olympus, home of the Greek gods. Carols, songs that were once tied closely to dances, were sung to honor the rebirth of Dionysus. It was believed that Dionysus was born twice, once by his human mother and once after he emerged from where he had been sewn into his father's leg. Children sang these songs while visiting rich people's homes. And again, this is a long time ago. This is where the history comes from. You can see pictures of the Roman Forum and the ruins of the Septimius Severus Ark and the Saturn Temple in Rome, Italy. And you may have seen the pyramids in Egypt as well. And these were actually built to line up with the stars and planets that they align with on certain days of the year. December 26th, the day after Christmas, is a holiday in many places. It is known as Boxing Day in Canada and other Commonwealth countries, and St. Stephen's Day in most European countries. One theory is that the boxes may refer to a Middle Ages tradition of workers asking for tips in a box for good service. So not boxing like fighting, but actual boxes. Okay, let's keep going. This is probably very different than what we think of when we say Christmas or it's time for Christmas. We've come a long way, and there's been many traditions, many stories, many things that have been passed down from generation to generation, and that's how things change. Okay. Flying chariots. The idea of someone being pulled on a flying vehicle towed by animals has been around for a long time. In ancient Greece, Dionysus got around in a chariot pulled by various flying creatures, including panthers, tigers, stags, bulls, or griffins, which were creatures with the body of a lion and the head and wings of an eagle. Thor's chariot was pulled by two goats. In Norse mythology, a horse pulled the sun god across the sky, an idea similar to that found in the Vedic religion of the northwestern Indians, so in northwest India. It's quite possible that centuries later, artists and illustrators who were wondering what Santa's mode of transportation might look like were inspired by earlier depictions of some of these earlier flying chariots. So the whole idea of a sleigh being flown through the sky by reindeer came from these ancient ideas. Now we come to Christianity, early Christianity. According to Christian tradition, around 3 or 4 BCE in Israel, a baby named Jesus was born in a stable. He became a preacher with a large following, and his teachings formed the foundation for a new religion called Christianity. The celebration of his birth would eventually become a midwinter celebration, today observed by more than 2 billion people around the world. The story of the Nativity. The story of Jesus' birth is known as the Nativity. It is described in 2 places in the New Testament, the part of the Bible written by various authors during the 1st century CE. Common Era is the term for CE, which is after Christ existed. The Gospel of Luke, which is one of the stories in the Bible. So the Bible is filled with different books from different authors. It's not just one book. One of the books is called the Gospel of Luke, and it tells the story of Mary and Joseph traveling to Bethlehem to register for a Roman census. They used to have to do censuses. We actually still do them, but it's a little bit different now. They used to have to actually physically travel to their hometown, and then they would come around and count them. Now we can just do it online. But they didn't have internet, phones, even mail. They had to physically be there. So Mary had to give birth in a stable. An angel spoke to shepherds who were watching over their sheep and told them that the Son of God had been born. Another book in the Bible, written by the author Matthew, is called the Gospel of Matthew, talks about the star of Bethlehem and how its light led the Magi, who are also known as the 3 wise men or the 3 kings, and their gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh to that same stable in Bethlehem. So it was kind of like a modern day barn. There were animals there, and the star was shining so bright you could see it from, I don't even know how far, but very, very far. Kind of like how you look up in the sky now and see a really bright star from anywhere that you are. That's how it was. But it was so bright that it led these 3 kings to the baby that was born, which was baby Jesus. So they found baby Jesus in the manger. And the date of Jesus's birth, we're not 100% sure that it was December 25th, but that's the day that we settled on. And that's the day that we celebrate his birth. Because the calendar is something that we've come up with as humans. And I'll explain that in just a second. But a number of other important dates in the Christian calendar were set as well. To remember this important story, many people have a crochet, which is a miniature version of the nativity scene. And you may have seen it indoors in a church or outdoors as part of Christmas decorations. Crochets often include a stable with animals, hay, and a tiny baby in a manger. That baby was Jesus. The first nativity scene is thought to have been staged in 1223 when Saint Francis of Assisi organized a scene including a live ox and a donkey in Greccio, an Italian hill town. As villagers came by to examine the nativity scene, Saint Francis preached about the birth of baby Jesus. Although some of the words were in Latin, some were also sung in Italian, the language of the audience. As time went on, nativity scenes became more elaborate and came to include additional characters, which we now see in a nativity scene. Early Christians believed that the Magi arrived to find the baby Jesus on January 6th, which they called Epiphany. This is another holiday that's celebrated. They also believed it to be the day on which Jesus was later baptized and in following years performed two important miracles. In the West, Epiphany celebrated the Magi, the three kings who had brought gifts for the baby. It became a day of giving, and children in many parts of the world still receive gifts from the three kings on January 6th. This is actually something that my family celebrated as we were growing up. And is still celebrated throughout the world. The essential oils, frankincense and myrrh, are both resins from trees that grow in Africa and the Middle East. They have been used for many purposes since ancient times, including being burned as incense in rituals and worship. And these were brought to the baby as a gift. We still use them today. You can get them as essential oils for frankincense, I think, is used for lots of things. Like if you have a headache or if something is bothering you or you have joint pain, you can use frankincense today. So it's been around since the beginning of time. So crazy. There's so much history all over the world. Okay. So the Magi may have ridden camels on their journey to deliver gifts to baby Jesus. Again, this was a long time ago. No cars, trains, buses, none of that. All right, so December 25th. No one knows the actual date of Jesus's birth, as it was never mentioned in the Bible. So why do we celebrate Christmas on December 25th? The answer to that question is a very long story, and people have argued about that story for over 2,000 years. Now we're in 2025 CE, Common Era, after Christ existed. So it's been 2,025 years about since Jesus was born. Christmas probably wasn't celebrated much at all for almost 300 years after Jesus was born. And December 25th wasn't chosen by the Christian church as the date until around the middle of the 4th century, a few years after Christians were allowed to practice their religion legally. So in the very beginning, many people, like the kings at the time, were not happy about this new tradition. They were not happy about a baby being born in a manger who was said to have power and be able to do all these miracles after he grew up. They didn't like that, and many people died during that time, and they weren't allowed to celebrate that baby being born, and they weren't allowed to believe in Christianity. So it took about 300 years before they were actually allowed to legally celebrate Christmas. So it kind of makes you appreciate Christmas and how freely we're able to celebrate today a bit more now that we know the story, because so many people died for what they believed. This is why it's important that we know that there are many different versions of holidays, many different versions of traditions, and we ask questions to people who celebrate differently. We don't be mean or rude or tell them they're wrong, because there's so many stories, so many traditions that if we don't understand them, it's easy to think that we know what's best and we know what's right just because it's what we've always done or celebrated or believed. And then we won't have very many friends if that's what we're doing. And that's how people begin to fight. And we don't want fighting. We want to get along and live together because that's what we're meant to do. That's our purpose in the world, is to live together in love and joy and peace and harmony and have fun and live life together in the light. Okay, back to our story. Some scholars, which are people who have studied these things for a very long time, believe that December 25th was chosen because it was 9 months after an angel told Mary that she would become the mother of Jesus. Others think the Christians wanted to make use of the non-Christian festival declared in 273 CE as the official day to celebrate the Roman sun god as Sol Invictus, or the unconquered sun. In early Christianity, the sun was often used as a symbol for Jesus. Another theory proposes that the church decided to make Jesus's official birthday coincide, so they were put together, during the festival of Saturnalia. So remember, they used to celebrate this festival of Saturnalia, and even the temples were built to align with Saturn during that time. So is it a coincidence that we celebrate all of these holidays and have celebrated them since the beginning of time all around the world in December? I don't think so. No. I think December is a very important time for us to be together and to celebrate all that we have. In the beginning, they were just celebrating having crops and having things to eat. And now it's become much more than that. But this is where we've come from and what's important. Okay. We're almost done, I promise. And then we'll do a craft. Okay, let's see, where were we? Okay, another theory says that the church decided to make Jesus's official birthday coincide with Saturnalia. What is clear is that December 25th became known as the Feast of the Nativity, and much later as Christmas or Christ's Mass, Jesus Christ, and the Mass that was celebrated for his birth. Over the centuries, the Magi also became known as the Three Kings or Three Wise Men. They were given different names, such as Melchior, Gaspar, and Balthasar. In fact, the Bible doesn't actually say how many Magi visited the baby Jesus in Bethlehem, and historians believe the word Magi refers to priests or astrologers from Persia, because remember, they were following a star, so this is known as astrology today. Maybe scientists, maybe they were kings, so that's not something we're 100% sure of, like what their purpose was, but we know that they came and brought gifts to the baby and they were led by the star. The actual date that they came, we're not 100% sure of. We just know that they came. That's important because some people argue that it was the day he was born. Some people say it was a couple days after he was born. Some people say it's 2 years after he was born, but they were led by the star to the baby. That we know for sure. The day, we don't know for sure. Because this was before calendars, before time, before pictures. It was just people writing this stuff down and telling the story to their friends, to their neighbors, to their cousins, to their family. And then they told it to their friends, their cousins, their children, their grandchildren. And it's been thousands of years. And we still tell the story today, which is why I'm telling you. So then you can tell your friends, your family, your children that this is where our history comes from and why we celebrate. So the days between Christmas and the Epiphany became known as, you ready for this? The 12 days of Christmas. The festival time ended with the 12th night. That was a party that marked the end of the Christmas season. In many places, there was a special cake with a bean or other small item hidden in it, and whoever found the bean in his or her slice of cake got to be in charge of the festivities. Whew, that's a big responsibility. A special period called Advent preceded Christmas. Preceded means it comes before. So, in the West, Advent begins on the fourth Sunday before Christmas. For many seasons, many years, many centuries, hundreds of years, it was a time when people were supposed to prepare for the holiday by eating very little or fasting. So you may have heard of people fasting. You may have heard of people only eating fish during this time or not eating meat. That is because they are preparing for the birth of Jesus. They're preparing for Christmas. And it's a tradition to help us remember that that's what happened. People also avoided games and other fun. And it's similar to something we do before Easter, which is known as Lent. Same thing. We fast from things that we indulge in. Some people fast from social media. Some people fast from video games. Some people fast from eating chocolate. That's a tradition that's been around for hundreds of years. Thousands. Today, Advent is celebrated in many different ways around the world. For example, we have Advent calendars. So the Advent calendars that we have today with chocolates, some of you have Labubu dolls, some of you have Legos in there, and you're opening them up and you're getting a little prize. Well, this is from many centuries of celebrations and many centuries of traditions. That is what we're counting down to, the birth of Jesus, not just to a time when we get presents. Many of your calendars have like a little door for each day before Christmas, and we start on December 1st. Behind each door is usually a picture, a gift, a candy, or a chocolate. Other families light candles on an Advent wreath, which is made of evergreen boughs meant to symbolize everlasting life. The 4 candles on each wreath each represent a week of Advent and is typically lit on Sunday. And a special prayer corresponds to each week. The Roman Empire officially adopted Christianity as its main religion in the 4th century CE, so about 400 years after Jesus was born. The established midwinter festivals and New Year's celebrations were so popular that many of the traditional practices blended in with Christian teachings. even though the church tried hard to get rid of them. In the next pages, we're going to explore how some of the ancient practices can still be seen in Christmas celebrations around the world, together with modern practices that no one who lived 2,000 years ago could have dreamed of. I'm going to kind of go through these a little quickly because I want to do a craft with you, and then tomorrow we'll learn a little bit more about these traditions. Okay, so we'll just kind of look at the pictures. So this is someone who banned Christmas. He closed many theaters, inns, and he forbid non-religious activities on Sundays and made things like drinking illegal. So there's been a lot of controversy around Christmas and religion. Many people get very, very mad, upset over holidays, religion, and different beliefs, to the point where they will ban it and make it illegal. And people got in trouble. People even died. And I'll explain more of that tomorrow. But I just want you to kind of look at the pictures and know that there are different ideas out there still. Okay, then we have Saint Nick, who was an actual person. We have mistletoe, Christmas trees now. So Saint Nick has become Santa Claus, but he was an actual person who gave gifts. And we've just kind of made Christmas a little bit more about the gifts now. And some things we can do are share stories. A lot of us hear the Christmas story the night before Christmas. We watch Christmas movies now, and we can share in many of these traditions with our families and friends now. So we can make Christmas cake. We can make big dinners, which I hope you're going to have. Share more stories. Share music. Share gifts with each other. Christmas trees. Dun, dun, dun. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll learn some more. We're gonna make gingerbread bars. Okay. Today we're going to see how we can celebrate by making some gingerbread houses, gingerbread barns, gingerbread anything really. So some of you have gingerbread kits, which you've gotten at the store or Amazon. You can also make gingerbread with butter, flour, sugar, baking soda, cinnamon, eggs, and a few other ingredients, which are listed here. You can come back and rewatch this, pause it, or find a recipe later. But basically, you can make gingerbread on your own and then create something out of it, which is what we're going to be doing. Okay, so this is just some more we'll do to learn about Christmas holidays around the world in general. So is this different than what you thought? Do you guys tell similar or different stories in your house? You guys eat different things in your house? I would love to know. Okay, next I'm going to show you how to make the gingerbread raft. So either you're going to get a kit or you're going to make gingerbread. And then put it together. So if you don't have it, you can just draw it just to kind of celebrate the holiday season. And I'm going to show you some different things. Okay. Ta-da! Here are some different things that you can do with your crafts. If you have a kit, it might look something like this. And then what you do is you kind of put it together however you'd like. Here's one that I really love. It's a barn. And some gingerbread cows or chickens. A walkway. And I'll post my pictures of the one that I make in the comments later. I'm going to make it with my kids, but basically, however you want to make it, it's fine. And if you can't make it, that's fine too. You can also draw it. And just send me a picture so that I know that you were here with me and that you were able to learn a little bit about the different holiday traditions. And we can enjoy each other's creations. I hope you had fun learning a little bit more about Christmas, where it came from, why it was celebrated, and tomorrow we'll learn about how we celebrate it. Tomorrow is Christmas Day. I hope you have an amazing season. Have amazing holidays with your family. Remember to share stories and listen to other stories, and to be kind and loving to one another, because that is how the world becomes a better place. And you will be a leader one day, and you will be a grown-up one day, and you will get to tell these stories and share in joy and love and all of the goodness of the world. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.